Oh no, it's cutting out.
Bring it down a little. That's still cutting out?
Yeah, it's there and then it leaves.
Should I do it softer? Or
Yeah, try softer.
Let me see if I send you the track.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say hi and introduce my special guest, which is Bob Stoloff. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say hi and we're just trying to play something first, as in my usual thing.
I'm going to try to send you this track really quickly.
Okay. I think it might be working right now.
Oh, good. So I'm sending you this track in case something doesn't work.
Okay. Are you sending it in chat or email?
I should look in chat. That would have made sense. I sent an email.
Okay. Actually, that's sounding good, Bob.
File. Yeah, I can send it in chat too. This is cool. I'm such a nerd when it comes to this stuff. Well, I'm not a good nerd. A bad nerd. Really bad. But let's see if I can drag it over. And that is blues for Kramer. I have, I just dedicated it to him, even though there's no musical reason. I just dedicated all these blues in my book, Blues Scatitudes, to different artists I've seen on screen. I love watching television. I have so many favorite actors and stuff like that. And Seinfeld was definitely up there.
Yeah, that was great. That was an incredible show, actually. And
oh my God.
Apparently we weren't the only ones who thought so.
Really hysterical. And all the Jewish shtick that was going on in that was just amazing. Oh my God. Yeah, the ensemble was phenomenal.
Yeah.
They really were phenomenal.
Yeah, really fantastic. My husband, you saw him briefly, but when he had dark hair, when I first knew him about 20 years ago, he looked so much like Seinfeld that when we were out, like at a restaurant, people would ask him for his autograph. And one time he said, I'm not Jerry Seinfeld. And the person was like, okay, fine. But anyway, as he grew older, he looked a lot more like me instead of Jerry.
I mean, I'm still using quotes from that show. It's just they captured it. They got everything there was to get,
Yeah, that was a good period of time for TV shows. There were some really, some great TV shows. Um, so Bob Stoloff, I'm so happy and honored that you came on the show, and it's great to get to talk to you for a while here now.
Thank you
Um,
so much for having me on. And I think, did we meet 50 years ago at Berklee?
yes, we did.
Wow.
Actually, we met when I came to do a workshop. But I went to Berklee for flute, by the way, 72 to 75.
Well, I don't know how we missed each other. That's what I was doing too.
See,
Except
maybe we played together, right? Or we were in the same class or something. I don't know.
maybe a performance class or something, but I don't, yeah, that's really funny. Wow, that goes way back, doesn't it?
Way back, yeah. Remember they didn't have vocals until I left, actually, 75.
They didn't have women either.
I was one of very few.
Yeah, you were lucky. How'd you get in?
Yeah.
You check off M on the application.
Yeah, my parents thought, you want to go to, well, my dad was a sax player and my mom had been a singer and my sister sang, we grew up all doing that, but and flute was my instrument. And then except I was singing too, but yeah, but yeah, I don't really remember how the whole thing happened, but here's what I remember. I remember my mother, God bless her, decided that I was too good to start at the bottom rung.
Mhm.
And so she kind of forced the issue, and I started at the middle rung, which was really a bad idea because I was really missing the bottom information. So,
Interesting.
yeah, so I really liked attending Berklee for the community feeling and also, things like writing music down, things like that. And so I loved Berklee for that, but I wish I had actually started it with the basics.
What made your mother think you were above the bottom rung?
I don't know. I guess because I was singing and I was always, that kind of idea followed me in life. People always thought I could do more because I jury rigged so well.
Right.
But yeah, I think in another direction, I would have liked to actually go into arranging.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm a little old to do that now, but that was kind of fascinating for me. I would have liked to go there.
So you were trained. Did you learn how to? You had when you went into Berklee. Did you know how to read music? Because there
I
were
did.
very few singers that could.
Yeah, I did because I played
Yeah,
flute.
there
Yeah,
you go.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're right. Well, then you were in an upper rung, but psychologically, probably being a woman and coming into a really a world of men playing jazz would have been more comfortable start at rung one. I can see
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
I would have liked that. But anyway, here I am.
Yeah.
then I came to Boston to give a workshop for Berklee, and that's when you and I met, and we spoke. We had a good conversation, and you sang. You definitely sang. Maybe I had you sit in, or I don't remember exactly the situation, but I remember I was like, "Wow, Bob Stoloff, holy moly!" And then then got your book, and Michelle Weir is a dear friend of mine, and she's a big fan of yours, of course. And you know, your legend preceded you and traveled with you, and
Oddly enough, I was not a singer and never intended to be. And
I remember you telling me that. Yeah.
I still feel the same way. In fact, I'm glad I'm retired from that because it wasn't really my first love. I got into it really accidentally because I started off as a violinist actually in fourth grade, and
Uh,
then moved into trumpet, which I really took seriously and studied with New York Philharmonic people. Really took that through the high school music and art. Really
mhm.
wanted to do that, but at the same time was starting to branch off into jazz drumming because it was something that just came naturally to me, and I really loved it. But I always listened to Ella Fitzgerald, and I just loved the way she would scat, and I would emulate her scat. And people started telling me, man, you really should do that. It's pretty good. And I took it seriously. And being the OCD person I am, I put a method together of scat singing because I said, well, I've learned how to play trumpet, flute, bass, all these different instruments. There is an instrumental approach, or what I now call instravocal approach, to learning patterns the same ways, like practicing patterns of articulation, with vowels and consonants and, getting it together. It's a lot of work, but it was work that I loved. I loved being in the practice shed and playing, 4 hours a day trumpet, etudes and exercises from the Arbon trumpet method. So I translated all that stuff. Well, what would singers, get? And there was one of my favorite trumpet exercises in 12 keys, right? Not as I said, well, if I sang that, what would it be? So I started going through all my Arbon trumpet exercises and assigning syllables to it. I said, well, that's kind of an interesting way to learn how to scat. It's not like listening to jazz and learning it like I had just really absorbed it from listening to Ella. I didn't think about those exercises. But it's funny, I had this strange life of studying very hard, etudes and exercises and technique and just, blasting through stuff on trumpet. And I said, well, this makes total sense to bring it to singers, because when I started teaching at Berklee, I realized they had no training. Said, especially except the ones who played piano or some other instrument like flute. They had no training. They had no way of relating to patterns and ways of developing technical skills. So I kind of translated everything I had learned as an instrumentalist for the voice and brought that to Berklee in 1973. So when I met you, I was in the midst of translating everything I knew from being an instrumentalist.
That's so cool. And I remember that exercise because that's in the book with the what is it? Who did the art on that? Or
oh yeah, Hirschfeld did that cover.
Yeah, what an honor to have him do your cover. Geez,
man, my publisher, the person who published that, Evan Sarzen, was my buddy when we were in grade school. And I told him, when I wanted to publish my first book, I told him, I said, nobody wants this thing. And he said, I'll publish it. And he's a lawyer. He's not even, he had a publishing company on the side.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, I'll do it. What the hell? And he made, history. And with that cover was from an album. I was with a group called the Ritz. There it is. Thank you. And that was my picture out of, there were eight of us in the Ritz.
Yeah.
2, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. There was a vocal group that actually released an album called The Ritz. And we asked Hirschfeld, we got permission to use this picture for a very high price. Oh my God. I mean, really expensive, because Hirschfeld is like, he's the king. I'll never forget him doing this picture when I was recording the album live with the Ritz. He just sat there and just zoomed into you, and he was like, and we're doing this live to 2-track, the whole Ritz album. And it's like, oh my God, this guy was amazing. But then when he came out, all of these figures, all of us were connected, and we isolated this one.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very, very
cool. This line of right here around your hand and then down around this.
Yeah.
That's almost Japanese-like, right? Or is that what it is? The Japanese art where you don't take your hand up?
You know what? I didn't know it was Japanese, but that's definitely what he did. When you look at the album cover,
yeah,
which I can dig up somewhere, but it's amazing how he did everything. I think he did that. Well, no, he must have connected it later because he did all of us individually.
Yeah,
but
it's really brilliant. Really
yeah.
Great. Yeah.
It's funny. My wife hated that picture. She said, your head looks too big. So I said, who cares, man? It's a Hirschfeld. It's just supposed to look big. It's a caricature. And it sold. I mean, that's what made that book,
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I have this particular book, and I was looking at your site, and I was like, I think I need let's see, there was one vocal improv for standards or something. What was the name of that?
Vocal improv is, let's see, jazz standards. That's Rhythmania, and the other one was solos for improvising over jazz standards. I couldn't shorten that title, but where is that? Here it is, recipes for soloing over jazz standards.
Okay. Oh, right here, recipes. Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I want to get that book because I'm interested. I'm always interested, for myself and for my students. So that's cool. So, are you working on a new book, or are you finished?
No, I'm booked out. I'm booked, man. I couldn't write another book now. Well, the last thing I wrote actually was my autobiography, because I
Really?
sat down and figured my life was absolutely so insane that I got to write this stuff down. So I did. It took me 2 years to write it. But I'm done with, I don't think there's any other approaches I can come up with for this.
Where is your autobiography? Is it on your site for sale, or is it not out yet?
No, I'm looking for a publisher. It may be published by, I have some great friends in Russia. I've been doing some workshops for a company called La Note in Russia. They've got a whole bunch of my workshops online, and he said he's interested in publishing the book. So, and since my roots are Russian, actually, it would really be cool, because my last name Stoloff is actually, Stol means table in Russian. My father's got Ukrainian roots. So I said, yeah, man, let's do it,
That's cool. Yeah.
Crazy story, man. It's I mean, everybody's got one, but I swear every night I lie down, I said, I don't know how the hell you got through with all that shit. Man, I don't know how you did it. I'm still cooking too. I mean, 70 years and still, I don't know, still here and singing. But the thing about singing was, I didn't sing till I was about, well, when you met me, I was just starting to. I got the job at Berklee just by accident. I mean, I was clearly a working drummer in Boston, and playing with the biggest guys, Brad Hatfield and Duke Ellington's nephew, and people would come in. I was doing studio work. I was a pretty good drummer. And when a bass player friend of mine, Ed Friedland, who you may know, told me one day, he said, you should go down to Berklee, man, they're hiring. And I went down, there was no voice thing going on. I think it was just brand new. Brian O'Connell was the chair. I talked my way into a job there. I said, listen, man, I have a whole methodology for teaching scat singing. And the first response was, nobody's interested in that. Okay. So I waited a year and I came back again. I said, I'm doing workshops and this and that. Anyway, so I talked my way into Berklee as a vocal teacher. But the weird thing is I had no technique at all. I never took a voice lessons. I could teach scat singing because I was translating my instravocal skills. But then I had a whole slew of private students that needed technique. And I said, it's like, I don't know what to do with this. Now it took me a long time to realize I was blessed to have been hired with no experience at the great Berklee College of Music. The truth being, they just saw Brian O'Connell saw something. He saw a diamond in the rough. He said, this would really be a cool thing to have, this instrumental guy teaching voice. So I'm glad I got my foot in the door. And since then, worked with some great teachers there and learned how to teach. But it took me a while to get the hang of the voice, because it's inside. You can't see the thing.
I know it's a very interesting instrument.
Oh my God, it's so personal.
It's so personal. It blows my mind. Sometimes, I'm very philosophical. So I always see lessons, personal lessons, philosophical lessons when I'm teaching, and I finally realized that, so communication is something that actually works literally in vocal technique. If you can put your mind into communicating, your technique literally works better. And then you have to practice that. You know, you have to continue to practice that state of mind, state of mind, state of mind, which it's super challenging, you know. It's like mental heavy lifting, you know.
Exactly.
And and you know, so of course communication, same concept is great in performing jazz, and it's also great in life, you know. So that's just one particular lesson that can cross over. But the vocal technique, so did you hire some vocal technique people, or did you just jump off the deep end?
Well, I was definitely jumped off the deep end, and I was teaching. I told the chair, I said, listen, let me teach vocal improvisation, you know, and so I'll take the students who want to learn how to improvise, and then this way I can slowly learn how to use my voice, you know, technically. And I worked with Charlie Sorrento, who was there forever. He was a wonderful voice teacher. Took some lessons with him, and I listened a lot, and I kind of used my intuition. I figured, well, if this is happening and this is happening, I did a lot of reading the vocal apparatus, and I kind of figured it out really quickly.
And playing trumpet probably helped as well.
Especially for the breathing.
Yeah.
Because I don't know why breathing escapes humans, because they really need to breathe, and air is free. So I'm not sure why I think, you know, it's an emotional, I've started to learn that there were these emotional barriers that singers had. Psychological barriers, being a singer, being second rate or third rate, you know, not being musicians, not knowing what they're doing, not able to count off, and while tunes, and not able to lead a band. Oh my God, which is really what made me start a course called Rhythm Section Grooves for Singers, in which I would teach them here's what you do when you stand in front of a band. You need to know a little bit about drums, bass, piano, guitar, just the basic core of the rhythm section. Here's how you count off a tune. This is what the beats and pulses are. Here's how you subdivide. Here's how you conduct. Here's how you cue. All these things they really didn't know. So in some ways, I don't want to say they deserved that reputation, but they had that reputation really from lack of training.
Yeah.
You know, we instrumentalists were trained because we were in symphony orchestras, concert bands. You know, you were probably in I was in a brass ensemble and a woodwind. You were in maybe a woodwind ensemble if they had one.
Yeah.
Berklee. But, you know, we had conductors. We learned, we played etudes, we practiced books, and it was just a whole different discipline. And I could not bring that discipline to singers.
Yeah.
I had maybe a handful or less singers, most of them from Europe, who really sat down and practiced. You know, but everybody else said, well, I'm not going to do that. You know, they did not want to put the time and the effort to develop technique, which really surprised me.
Yeah. You're right about the Europeans. I remember when I first went to the Scandinavian countries, I was so blown away that the students were so committed. It was great. Yeah, very interesting. And I also remember the Germans too. The Germans were always like, my German students, I'm not, you know, totally generalizing, but they would always say, oh, you Americans think everything is, you have to like explain everything. Just give it to me and I'll do it. Okay, here it is. Oh, I can't do that. You just said you want, you know, you just said I was like treating you with silk gloves, you know, so come on.
I'll tell you that the strongest work ethics I've encountered are Asian.
Yeah.
These days, Indian. I have a lot of people, students from Indian, probably American born because they sound very American, but their parents are like really pounding them, and they really work hard. But the Russians, look out, man. The Russians they are badass.
Wow.
They're really intense. You know. That's why I love teaching there. I don't know if I would move there, but I'm hoping that this thing with La Note turns into a annual thing, because they had like 8, 9, 10-year-old kids singing like from the tunes and improvising at the highest level you can imagine.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's really cool. So,
oh,
the Ruskies.
Fascinating. Wow. I'm going to look forward to hearing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really, I find it really alluring to see how people have been coming up in the last 20 years, what thing rises to the top, and I think it's exciting. I mean, to hear you say that, it's like, wow, where are they gonna be when they're 15, If they're like that at 7, geez,
Very accomplished.
Yeah.
Well, there'll be accountants, doctors, and lawyers. I don't, for all I know. But oh my God, they really know how to take a skill and work it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Great.
fantastic. Um, I was thinking of let's listen to something just for fun. What would you like? Should I go on YouTube, or I'm not sure if if you share it, should normally just sound fine, but I can go on YouTube and find something.
Something with me singing.
Yeah. Are you on YouTube? You probably are, right?
Now I'm looking at my albums and stuff that I've done. Let's see, because I have Bob Stoloff's greatest hits, which was kind of a joke because none of them ever came out. I almost had a record deal with a German label, but never happened. And anyway, so I decided to.
So most of you is teaching or
yes,
on YouTube.
Most of the stuff I did on recording was purely experimental.
What about this? The Music School Rome, Bob Stoloff workshop. Looks like you're gonna sing a little.
Well, if you want to hear my instrument vocal stuff, I've got a whole album here.
Oh.
Like Flight of the Bumblebee, for instance. The first thing I did as a singer was to take most of the trumpet stuff that I had learned and vocalized it, because that's what I could relate to.
Yeah.
Like the Carnival of Venice, which is, what key is that in? Bum bing bum biddy dum biddy dum ding bum 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 dee doo dee doo doo. And there are these variations. Then there's triple tongue and double tongue, and so I had a blast going and doing that, and I have that actually recorded. But I think one of the funny things I did was this one. Can you hear this? Yeah, I know. Totally nuts. And I laughed. Really had so much fun doing this. And you know what? This got me the gig with Bobby McFerrin and Ursula Dudziak, Jake Clayton, Gene Lee.
Oh my God.
Who had that group vocal summit.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the reason they hired me is I did, quote, weird stuff with my voice. My bass player, who was on these recordings, went to New York, and he had a copy of this. And I have other stuff here I can play for you. But Ursula Dudziak, he did a session for her, and she said, "We're looking for a singer who can take Bobby's place for a concert in Nano-Esching in Germany." And anyway, blah blah blah. Ursula Dudziak calls me up and says, "We need you to. We want somebody to substitute for Bobby McFerrin." And I said, "Oh yeah, right, man. Sure, you call the right guy." I had just heard McFerrin's first album, and I said, I was really cool. I would. Oh no! I have the phone call on tape.
Oh my God!
Because my recorder went off, and it is the funniest because I'm going, "Oh really? Well, send me the arrangements." And yeah, I think let me check my calendar. Hold on a second to see if I'm free. to go to West Germany, and I remember going, ah! Bobby McFerrin, how am I going to fill his shoes? But they had heard this, you know, whatchamacallit, Flight of the Bumblebee, and what else? I mean, a whole bunch of things, and they figure, oh yeah, well this guy can probably do something, and the rest is history. You know, I flew to Germany.
Now,
No
had
rehearsal.
had you been had you sung with other singers to an extent at all? You hadn't. So, and then, I mean, improvising, what about like free improvisation? Because, you know, that's what they did a lot. So, did that, I mean, was that something that you had been doing at all?
Absolutely not. I didn't know what the hell they were doing.
Wow.
That's why I asked them, well, send me the charts. I have it on the tape. It says, well, personally, that sounds really exciting. Send me the chart, send me the music. And she says, we don't have any music. So I said, what do you do? She said, well, they just improvise. I had no idea what they were doing. And there was no rehearsal.
Oh my God.
So I went to Donaueschingen in West Germany for this big extravaganza. 1,500 people in the audience. You know, this is my first appearance ever as a singer in front of human beings. And oh my God, I didn't have any scotch before the concert. So I was like, you know, the only thing I had was seltzer, was water, you know, what do you call it? Mineral water.
God.
And I made the mistake of getting mineral water with bubbles. So I had to burp through the whole beginning of but this is interesting. That first performance, I don't know, this whole thing I write about in my autobiography because it's kind of a divine intervention. There was some really bizarre reason why that whole thing happened. I had no preparation for it at all, other than having been a drummer. So what the producer of this thing wanted us to do is each person had to do a vocal solo for this concert. And of course, the only thing I could do was vocal percussion, you know, because I had finally made the connection of, you know, I figure, well, if I'm going to go and be an improviser vocally, the only thing I know is drumming, you know, and scat singing. But these people were just improvising from scratch. So I went to my drum pattern books, and I started working on, you know, all the stuff I had done with sticks and kick drum and stuff like that. It's called the Ted Reed Syncopation for the Modern Drummer book. So I went through the whole book and prepared vocally how I would improvise over all of these things. And that I figured, all right, that's going to be my shtick for this thing.
Yeah.
So I get to Germany, and we did actually have one run through, and Ursula told me, we don't want you to wave your hands around like you're playing drums. I said, oh my God, this is like 20 minutes before the concert. All I could do was, I had to, you know, simulate what I was doing. So I had to really reconstruct that whole thing in my head. What am I going to do? Because this is my debut of the century, and I'm totally unprepared. So I went out as I had taken acting, and I was in plays and musicals and stuff. I decided, okay, I'm just going to go crazy. I'm take the microphone, and I just went nuts. And instead of using my hands, I looked at the audience straight, and I walked around the audience, and I was like scatting drums right at them and make them, like, you know, almost like knock them off their feet, because no one was expecting this. Everyone was singing melodically, and here comes, who's Bob Stoloff, you know? I come in and I'm going, and I got all this stuff which came from I have no idea where, and the audience went absolutely nuts, because there was, you remember, in 1983 there was no vocal percussion going on.
Yeah.
So I maybe, for all I know, you know, the grandfather or something, a VP, and the newspapers wrote that up. Oh my God, they went nuts. They wrote some great stuff up. You could see the whole drum set around Bob. You know, they did Well, yeah, they could see it because I wasn't playing it, and I had to internalize all that stuff. Anyway, it turned into a monumental thing, although there were some people who in the group that were not happy about it because it took the camera. I got the spotlight and they weren't happy about that. And that brings up, a psychological drama thing that I have lived through is, even in the Ritz and every band I've been in, is when you do something special, look out, because there's egocentric competition going on. Even when you're in a band and doing things for the good of the group, there's going to be that stuff. And that's why I got out. I stopped performing, because after that experience, I said, it may be a team effort in my brain, but when it gets down to it, there's too much competition and it affects it negatively and tears the thing apart. That's pretty heavy, huh?
It is heavy, yeah. And yeah, I mean, I can understand that. I have a well, I hope we get back together from the pandemic, but I've had a 7-piece vocal group, actually inspired by a Rhiannon workshop, and we call it Fish to Birds. And we've been together like 9 years, something like that. And it's, part of our thing is that we do support each other's highlights, but it's true too, even in our form, sometimes I think it's a balance of how many times one person might be in the spotlight. If it's a balance that everybody is in, it doesn't have to be on that particular gig, but, gig after gig, you want everybody, there's a balance. Everybody has their thing, right, that they do. And and I remember Rhiannon, she gave us like a little one-on-one workshop, and she was saying, stretch out of your comfort zone, so that you can kind of break that, but yeah, I can see what you're saying. It's interesting.
It is. Well, the psychological drama of being a performer, when you're with an ensemble, you're dealing with 6, 7, whatever, many entities.
Yeah.
Everybody with their own agenda. And you don't always sit down and have group sessions where you talk the stuff out. It's just under the surface. So it's.
Do you think it's more of a personality trait, what we're speaking of? Like you put the right personalities together and.
Yeah, you take the New York Voices, 30 years.
Yeah.
And I followed them from the beginning. I was with Peter Eldridge. We used to play club gigs together, so, and he said, you got to hear this group, man, it's really cool. So I heard them from the very, very beginning and followed their whole evolution. And boy, whatever they had to work out, they worked out. Yeah. And I said, you are so blessed, man, because that's very unusual, but they really worked hard at it.
Yeah. Have you ever heard Moss?
No.
So, it's Peter's group with Luciana Souza and Kate McGarry and Theo. And is it Lauren? Wait, Moss. Yeah, I think Lauren's in there. But anyway, it's really interesting group. I don't know how much they're working anymore, but the cool thing about that group was that they specifically took each person and arranged. It's hard to put into words. They arranged the song so that the singer's individual highlights came forth.
Nice.
And it was really great to listen to, because I don't really know. I mean, it's unusual, I think, for a group to do that.
It is. I agree. I've never had that experience. It's always been a race for the spotlight.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in that at all.
Yeah. I remember at the time that I met you in Boston, you actually said you were not singing. So maybe that was after that period, or was it all the way back there, like in the early 80s or something?
Yeah. I went back to drumming with the jazz harp trio, Deborah Henson, Conant, and Peter.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
that was
That must have been fun.
oh my God, I loved it.
She has quite the energy, man.
Yeah, that was the best because I'm really more into classical music than anything.
Mm.
And I spent a lot of my years, playing in orchestras in New York and also high school of music and art. So that group, that was the ultimate group, I think, because I got to sing in it some the drum solos. I got to scat over some chord changes, and Peter Contreras is one of the best bass players I ever played with. And yeah, I kind of like, my whole life is weird. I even had a period of time where I played saxophone for 3 weeks. I mean, it's just weird stuff. And I was like, moved to New Jersey, and I was in a stoner band for a month or less, and smoking pot and just playing in one key. I could only play in D minor. And it's so funny. But you know what? It was the worst because we did a gig once with this group. Oh my God. And some very famous saxophone player walked in, and I sort of recognized him. I can't think of his name. And he said, can I sit in? I said, oh my God, he thinks I'm a saxophone player. And he played great and stuff. And oh God, and the worst thing you could ever say to someone, he said to me afterwards, I played my D minor stuff, and he said, yeah, man, it sounds great, man. I says, oh shit. Oh, I'm gonna go home and kill myself. Oh man. Anyway, I have like all these crazy stories like that. So, but you know what? One of my biggest accomplishments was, and this is weird, I went to this music camp for 5 summers. And the last summer I was there, they didn't have a string bass player. And I was already on full scholarship playing trumpet in dance band and drums in another dance band. They used to call it like jazz bands or stage bands.
Yeah.
And they put together a string quartet with the counselors who were like very heavy duty college age level players. And they said, we need a bass player. So I said, I raised my hand. This is how I got into music. Yeah, well, I'll check it out. I sort of know a little bit. So they got this aluminum bass with a cello bow, and they gave me the music, and I opened it up. I brought it into the practice room, and it said, Eine kleine Nachtmusik, Wolf Amadeus Mozart. And here's where the interesting thing comes in. That was the song that started me off in music when I was like 8 or 9 years old.
Wow.
When I heard that piece, that was it. I was gone. I said, here it was. It was like, I had to learn how to bow, do everything in 6 weeks. And I played the concert at the end of the 6th week. And I remember the cellist saying to me, man, you really should play this instrument. It was like the saxophone. It was just kind of a passing thing, but wow, how bizarre is that? When I think back on it, I say, how the hell did you ever pull that off? Just first of all, having the chutzpah to get there with this, with the whole little string group, and to, do it. And I did it. And I wish we had cell phones, because I don't have recordings of any of this stuff. So it's in my, it's just stuck in my brain, which I replay over and over and over again. Like, whoa, where did that come from?
Well, you're obviously so interested. You're curious and interested, and that for you is very strong. A lot of people are curious and interested, and then maybe it dies away or it lasts for a little while. But folks like you are really, it's like it's demanding your attention. I think that's really amazing.
Yeah, and I have that personality of an achiever.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna be the best at it. And my parents did not lay that on me. Never laid that on me. They laid other stuff, plenty of other crap, but they did not expect perfection from me. But boy, was I a perfectionist. Woo!
Did you have siblings?
Yes, I have a sister. older, 3 years older. We're in contact every day still.
Oh, cool. So what was her life kind of like yours or very different?
No, she was, the way she puts it is she was exsanguinated by my mother.
Oh man.
which, which is probably why we both love Bela Lugosi and Count Dracula so much. So that's what mom did to you. I said, well, my father did the same to me. So we have stories we've been sharing, what our parents did to us, and still sharing them, still.
Wow.
It's been a great thing, but no, she had the opposite. She gave up. She was an achiever for a while, and then she just totally stopped doing everything. And I don't know why.
Yeah.
She felt helpless. She still feels helpless. And I write her every day. I said, no, man, you got the strength. Get that inner strength. Break a window like I used to. I was terrible with rocks and windows. Oh my God. It was smashing things. And, playing drums was the best thing that ever happened to me. It was like, the cymbals, man, it was just great. My parents were thrilled because, I wasn't breaking windows anymore. So, yeah, I had this anger thing going on, which I see in some of my young students, 10, 11-year-old kids, and I really relate to them. And, I see how important it is to sublimate that energy. And for me, I needed to do it in a lot of, as a flautist. I can play you something I wrote, by the way, for flute and played.
Oh yeah.
Flute, bass, drums, trumpet. Voice was, like I said, just kind of a final extension of that. But wow. Yeah, it's been, and what I talk about in my autobiography is each instrument has a personality, and I assume that personality when I am playing that instrument. So that when I'm doing a gig on trumpet and I'm bringing my flugelhorn and my trumpet, I'm doing along, I'm warming up like. Once in a while I get confused, I'll do a vocal thing and I'm like, so wait a second, we got to switch gears. All these warm-up things and a whole psychological thing to playing the bass, to playing flute, trumpet, drums. It's like a brass player's brain, as opposed to, I talk a lot about that in my autobiography, which I really think one of these days I have to release it, because I think people who have followed me will find it very interesting, because it explains a lot of my madness. But anyway, so, that was a way of expressing myself and feeling like a different. So I had a split personality, but I call it like what do they call it? Like a functional split personality.
Yeah.
With different caps for different things.
Yeah.
I did write a song for flute, which I played.
Bob, I'm thinking that maybe you should share your screen and then play it, because it might actually have better sound like that. Can you do that?
Okay, let's see. We're going to share screen. And so the Google Chrome, miscellaneous music is probably the one I want. Okay, here we go. So you can see this?
Yep.
Andy's theme is a trumpet, piece for trumpet. Dance of the Eohippus. Are you familiar with an Eohippus?
I am not. I'm sorry to say.
Well, don't be sorry. It's not. It's not your run-of-the-mill thing. An Eohippus is also called a dawn horse. It was the miniature horse that was existed. It's now extinct. The only reason why I got hip to it, so to speak, is it was in this movie called Valley of Gwangi, where they had dinosaurs running around and they had an Eohippus that danced. It was a tiny little horse, and they taught it to dance, and it was really cool. And so this is Dance of the Eohippus, and I'm playing flute on this, so you might get a kick out of it. How's the sound?
Pretty good. I think you can lower the sound just like 3/4.
How's that?
Yeah.
So you can imagine this horse dancing around. It's really cool. So there's the vocal bass coming in here. Russ Hoffman playing piano, was an amazing piano player.
Sounds great.
Can you hear the voice doing the bass?
Yeah.
Again, this is experimental at the time. McFerrin influenced, of course.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the vocal percussion solo, which I was really known for. Yeah, it comes back, and it's funny because that technique, any brass player can do that. I mean, but you'd have to be a drummer also, or at least think like a drummer.
Yeah.
But you know, so it's kind of the, you know, I was ahead of the game by having double and triple tonguing technique from trumpet, and then having played the drums and playing tons and tons of patterns, you know, like paradiddles, and just doing a simple paradiddle like cat, and then doing accents in different places. And this is what, you know, players do, you know, for 8 hours a day, the ones that want to develop technique. You just play these things over and over. So it's kind of like a cool thing to like, okay, now I can vocalize all the stuff again, and I can stay in my practice room because that's where I was happiest and safest, in the shed, you know, just away from people, because people were too crazy for me.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. You can stop sharing your screen. Yeah, that I love that. That is, so is that's on an album of yours, correct?
Well, yeah, I didn't release it. It is on some, yeah, it's on, I have it recorded, let's put it that way. You know, and people on request, I'll send it to, you know.
Yeah.
But it's not, you know, it never got published or anything.
Yeah. Can you stop sharing your screen?
Yeah, stop share. There it is.
There we go. Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
That I mean, amazing, beautiful, great melody, great, amazing rhythm of the melody, the flow of the song, your solo, your bass singing. Wow. And you're playing all the instruments. Is that what you said?
No, Russ Hoffman was playing piano.
Right. Okay.
So I did vocal bass and the flute. Yeah.
Fantastic. God, that was amazing. Beautiful. By the way, Tracy Robertson, who was one of your students, he is in my group, Fish to Birds.
Really? How cool. Say hello to her for me.
Yeah.
He's a great musician.
He is great. He's very smart and just one of the most beautiful human beings, you know, ever. Yeah. He was the last person who we got into the group, but now he moved to, I think he's in the Midwest. I can't remember exactly where he went to, but he was on the East Coast, then he went to the Midwest. And I don't know. I don't know, Fish to Bird. I tried to get a Fish to Birds rehearsal going and ended up with 2 of them. So I don't know, these days is so kind of weird,
Really hard to, yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah. So do you, I noticed on your resume it said you're a conductor, and
Mhm.
is that conductor for instrumentalists or uh conductor for vocals, vocal?
Both.
Uh-huh.
Yep, both. Um, I've been a guest conductor for all state choirs for years and years and years,
Yeah.
everywhere. And when I had my Bob Stoloff School of Music, or wherever, I don't remember what I called it. I was in Europe for a while, and I was going between the Netherlands, Spain, and Italy, and conducting what I put together was like a school, a 5-day a week class in which also included choir. So I had all of arrangements from that I had done forever, and was conducting them. So yeah, I wish I had I didn't have much conducting experience with instruments, but my experience as a conductor involves what I learned from those conductors. So I think I learned how to conduct, being in concert band and symphony orchestras and stuff. Man, I had some great people at Music and Art. And I say music and art, that was high school. After that, there wasn't really much. So I learned from them, and then I also learned from April Arabian and Michelle Weir, and doing clinics with them and watching them conduct and how to do voice and stuff like that. So um, I love it. It's just great because I love expressing. It's like Italian, you know what I mean? It's so Italian. It's just great,
Yeah.
and it's so intuitive too. So like you don't have to. I mean, we learned at Berklee, this is 4/4, this is 6/8, and all those patterns. But when you get down to it, no, you really just use your intuition and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So I love it. It's really great.
Yeah. Let me ask you something. So, you know, um, and I'm not really sure of the exact question. So I'll start with just saying something that I noticed over the years, which is teaching people scatting. There's a number of books out, and that, and this has to do with vocal choruses as well, where we break it down, and your book breaks it down, of course, to syllables, doot and doot and doot and that kind of stuff. And so one thing that I noticed and was not particularly fond of in choruses, jazz choruses, was that the students were singing like that.
Yeah.
And I just thought, well, that's not really ideal. How do you especially having written a book about it, right? I mean, you have to break it down for people to understand, but
Yeah.
once it gets into the performance of it, you must have run into that, right? And how did you deal with that?
That's a great question because what I do is I teach the clinical approach, which is doot and doot and doot and do ya, all those syllables and stuff. But I try to teach it. Well, there's two different things. If they're going to improvise, I try to get them to absorb some of that technical stuff, do it, but forget about it when you're improvising. But if it's going to be a choir piece where it's a written passage, I will work in smoothing out those syllables so that they don't sound so clinical.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah, you just have to. I you work yeah you work with them on improvising a lot so that they feel comfortable with it, because everybody's scared to death to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So once they get over that fear, then the idea of reading doot and doot and doot, doesn't feel so like ba 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 ba. It's doot and doot and doot and doot, and they see I'm really relaxed about it. And I said, you have to interpret this. It's written one way, but it's you have to feel it a certain way. So I work a lot with those syllables separately. We'll do different exercises, which are just rhythmic scatting back and forth and getting used to, like learning a language. When you first took Spanish or French, and they started you off with the pronunciations of basic vowels and consonants. So I approach it that way, and then I try to get them to loosen up as much as possible. But they can only do that if they see that I'm loose.
Yeah.
I'm always funny and crazy and joking around, and I have a persona that I bring to the class, because everyone's scared to death when they see that picture of Hirschfeld's picture on the book. And I show up to the school and they go like, "Oh my God, Bob Stoloff's here." I'm just another guy, man. Don't worry about it. I'm totally, and that's, that fear factor is amazing.
Yeah.
And that's what can make something sound very tight, you know what I mean? Instead of loose. It's that fear. And everybody's got it. I love working with classical singers who want to improvise, because they're like deathly afraid. And and they're so much fun, because he said, "Look, man, every conductor I ever had in a symphony orchestra said, 'Let me hear the trumpets here.' And it said, letter A, it's like da 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 da, we did a little da. They were all scat singers. So that we heard this stuff before. It's if you isolate it and put it into a pocket of like, that's jazz and we're classical.
Yeah.
No, not really. It's the same stuff, man. It's just a little bouncier. That's all. You just got to be looser. Have a shot of something, whatever. Loosen you up. I don't tell my kids to do that. The teachers that work with me, I said, you just got to loosen.
Yeah. Speaking of that, curious as to your method, let's say, or ideas on teaching groove, because groove is another hard one to get to. Sometimes it's I think sometimes I think it's about words. It's like in fact, I have somebody now who's recording, and he definitely has a groove inside him. He knows, but when I ask him for it, it doesn't click until it clicks, and then he'll say something like, "Oh, you mean conversational?" Oh, yeah, whatever it means to you, that's fine. But it's the words that mean something to somebody. I think everybody has groove. Everybody knows what groove is, in their life and their beingness. But sometimes teaching it is really an interesting thing, I think.
When you say groove, do you mean pulse, time feel, stylistic feel, interpretation?
Yeah, kind of like a,
Like, Right, gotcha. Woo! Yeah, that's really.
And see, now that is a great example right here. So you gave me 4 words, right? Do you mean da da ba 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 ba, right? So that's even just between us. Yeah. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. My first approach is always very clinical, and it probably doesn't work that well with most people, because it's very technical. But let's say jazz swing, for instance, which is the hardest groove for especially my Brazilian students. South American students have had a hell of a time, but also Americans, because they just don't listen to it that much.
Yeah.
To get into that, oh man, I first break it down into 2, 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and putting accents on the different beats, down beats, up beats, down beats, middle beats, so I try to do it the way I learned playing accents as a drummer. So taking triplet, to me, jazz swing is triplet. That's it. It's a triplety feel. It's but then you have to shift the accent. And even the middle one. Well, you don't really do that so much. It's usually the first triplet, the first note and the last note. So, but when you do combinations, like that, it all comes back to drumming for me. So I try that, and I do drum exercises from usually either my book, Rhythm Mania, or what I love is Ted Reed, Syncopation for the Modern Drummer, because he's got pages and pages of triplets with accents in different places.
Yeah.
which is what swing is to me. So that's my first approach. If they can't get it that way, and a lot of them don't, then it's really through absorbing.
Yeah.
Listen to, you have to listen to these, to jazz. You have to hear that zagato, and that means the drums, the bass, the comping. And to simplify it, all right, you want to sing, listen to Ella,
Yeah.
sing this tune, or listen to
Joe Williams, or
Joe Williams. There you go.
Yeah.
Someone who really lays it down real hard, and you just try to absorb by osmosis.
Yeah.
So there's a clinical approach, which is my approach because I'm, a clinician really, and then osmosis. But I'm also an osmotic guy because I didn't learn scat singing from anybody. I listened to Ella and Louis Armstrong and all the great scat singers, and kind of just felt it, and I'm intuitive. So if you have a student who doesn't have an intuition for music, wow. I have done things where I get them to play drums. I have a lot of my singers are playing drums now. And so they can physically realize what is chang, chang, ka-chang, chang, ka-chang, chang, ka-chang on the ride cymbal. What does that feel like to play over and over and over? And I said, try to get them to internalize that. And then I'll have them do rudiments like zappity, doopity, boppity, doopity, right, left, left, internalize that. That's the only way I know how to do it. That's my theory, is if you internalize that type of stuff, you should be able to but then you need some way to mellow that out, so it doesn't sound too clinical.
Yeah.
So it is a massively difficult process for someone who's not intuitive. And of course, it's much easier for someone who picks up stuff, who's more intuitive.
Yeah. I had one student who was very, musically inclined, but she really felt the 1 and 3.
Yeah.
So, and that took her a while with different pieces of information from different musicians, and, also getting up and performing, and to finally arrive at what, it was a process. It was a road that she traveled on to finally get to understand what it was, instead of putting herself down because she knew she wasn't getting it, and people telling her things, and then she would kind of get hurt by it. So
Yeah.
it was a really interesting process for her, and it took a few years. But yeah, it's I find it really fascinating, and I too grew up listening to Ella, and my dad was a straight ahead sax player, so what he listened to, I listened to, growing up, and it was big bands and Frank Sinatra, and Ella was probably the most out that although he did listen to Stan Kenton, and that could sound really pretty cool. But yeah. The swinging, and there's so many subtleties in there, and I mean, Ella's pretty subtle, I mean, when you really understand what is going on, it's really a marvel to listen to her,
Totally. I totally agree. She just lives and breathes music, it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I think that all singers, if I had my own school again,
Yeah.
or if I could push it another level, I would have everybody play at least 1 or 2 instruments, piano for sure,
Yeah.
to develop a harmonic sense, but also play a little bit of bass, a little bit of a horn,
Yeah.
trumpet, trombone, saxophone. I think the physicality of playing those instruments really gives you, at least it gave me, such a versatile palette of expressions that makes it easier to do stuff. I don't know.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Cinna Eeg is a really good example. Do you know her, Cinna?
I don't.
She's a really fine musician singer. She's so good. She just does all the right things. And she was an alto player for years. And then all of a sudden, singing, kind of came. Paul
Yeah.
Jost, he was a great drummer. You know Paul?
I don't, but it makes sense that these
Yeah.
people have backgrounds in instruments.
Yeah. And by the way, when I was at Berkeley, um, the book, the book that they gave, or one of the books anyway, was Louis Bellson's drum
Reading,
book.
right, reading in 4/4 time.
Yeah, I still have that book and occasionally look at it. And you're inspiring me now to get back into it and put in some time on it.
That's a tough book. He was a madman. I loved him. Oh my God, he was so great. His clinics were just so cool.
He was such a kind man. I was talking about him with somebody the other day. I can't remember. But yeah, what a kind man. He was just great. I had some friends in his band here in LA, so I used to go and hang out at the rehearsals and the gigs and stuff, and just very musical, extremely musical, and a sweetheart.
He was the kind of the antithesis of Buddy Rich.
Apparently, yeah.
Have
But
you heard those?
also, he was married to what's her name? Who you would think would be the antithesis of him.
I forgot who he's married to.
God, her name's on the tip of my tongue. A black singer, very strong. Somebody out there, if you remember, if you know that. Yeah, Louis Bellson and Pearl Bailey.
Oh yes, right.
And she was like, you know,
Thunder. Yep.
yeah, man. She was
Well,
a
she probably kept him in place, man. She kept his paradiddles very even.
Yeah. Oh, hi, David Joyce. Oh, yeah, you have that book too? It's great. Yeah, David Joyce is a great singer, and sometimes he sits in with Fish to Birds, and he's from a whole, you'd be really interested in him. His whole family, he has 4 brothers, all singers. His father sang and booked contracted singing gigs. So they were like the royalty in LA growing up. And he's the head of the vocal department at LA College of Music, which was the pull off from Musicians Institute.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, David and he's a pianist as well. Yeah. Yeah. So let's see. What else can I? Where are you living right now?
I'm in the Boston area, a little bit west in a town called Framingham.
Framingham. My cousin lived in Framingham. We used to go to Framingham all the time.
And it's I think turned into a city because it's huge.
Wow.
I teach at a music school called Real School of Music in
Oh.
Burlington.
Oh.
They have 3 branches. It's really great because I've never worked with kids, and I get to work with 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, really young kids, and it's just a trip, man. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Did I tell you I'm from Newton?
No, I didn't know that.
Yep. Grew up in a little corner which is bordered by Needham and Dedham called Oak Hill Park.
Oh yeah, okay.
It was like a small community part that was built for the veterans of World War II, and it was a really nice place to grow up, and that's probably part of the reason I went to Berklee, because I was so close. But yeah, so in Framingham, yeah, my cousin lived there. My cousin lived there.
I grew up in New York, actually Long Island, and then Manhattan. Yeah, boy, what a tough city that was. What a the change, the metamorphosis, the change from Long Island being out in a gated community out in Sands Point, which is a very wealthy community. My parents had a lot of money.
Yeah.
Moving to Manhattan and taking the train up to 137th Street and whatever it was when music and art was up in the tough area. Boy, we used to get killed going to school and back.
Really?
It was rough. Yeah, it was a very rough neighborhood. But that training was amazing. I mean, we had 6 concert bands, 6 symphony orchestras, that many levels, 2 jazz bands, or maybe 1, and I had everyday ear training 5 days a week for 3 years,
Oh my God.
plus band every day, orchestra every day, brass ensemble every day or every other day, whatever it was, plus all our other courses. It was an amazing, by the time I got to Berklee, there was nothing left to learn except 2/5, resolutions. That was about it. But in terms of experience playing that school, wow.
Wow.
And, yeah, that was the place. That was, I don't think it's like that anymore, but at that time, it was just,
And what school was that? What was the name of it?
it's the High School of Music and Art, which is also called, it has other names as well. Let's see, there was the High School of Art and Design, the High School of Performing Arts. I think they changed the name to it. It's now in Lincoln Center. So, yeah, that was amazing. I'm sure it's a different place now, but it was traumatic for me to be in that school, but also I learned so much.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, and that's, you just that all by itself is amazing, and you can't, sometimes when the singers come along, and they want to learn jazz and they want to know how to sing, I feel bad for them because it's, you're just starting kind of like a new puppy, and without the training of something like that, or even just singing gigs 10 times a week,
Yeah,
it's challenging. It's very challenging.
very.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest challenge I had at Berklee when I started teaching in the voice department. The first thing they did, we had a 30-hour work week, and all of that was private students for me. I think there was one improv
Wow.
class. Yeah, it was a lot of private students. So I got to learn what singers, were like, what their background, what they had, what they didn't have. And that's when I decided to write all these courses for singers that would help them, with leading a band, how to sing in a band, how to do count-offs and cut-offs and cues,
Yeah.
what a groove is, what time
Yeah.
is. And,
Yeah.
so I did. So I kind of went in 3 directions: improvisation, what was it? Improvisation and working with bands. That was a
Yeah.
real big thing of mine. I think there was a third thing, but I forgot what it was. But I guess choir, jazz choir, stuff like that. And to me, I remember thinking, I said, I've got to bridge the gap here, man. There's such a gap between singers and instrumentalists.
Yeah.
Singers were coming in with these awful reputations, and they felt they couldn't do anything. And in a lot of cases, they couldn't. Counting 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3 was like, it's like Greek.
Yeah.
So you're learning how to do a count off. So that was fun. That was really great. It gave me, I had so much space because the voice department was brand new. We only had 2 courses, only 2. One was repertoire, which was whatever you wanted to do. And the other was sight reading, which was whatever you wanted to do. There was no curriculum.
Wow.
So being a reader, I instituted the sight reading thing, which I think fell on its face because singers just don't want to read. There's no way, man. I pounded those people for years, 27 years. And I try to make the course as fun and interesting as possible. I would play commercials from the 50s, like Brill Cream makes men's hair look light, all the stuff that I grew up with. And they never heard, because I wanted them to read, sight read. Otherwise, so I had to pick stuff from the 50s before they were born. So the classes were fun. It was all these jingles and old stuff, themes from TV shows. And I just could not get them to realize, speaking of Luciana Souza, she was one of the few students I had who took reading music seriously.
Yeah.
And she just took everything. She was one of a few, but most of them just said, came in, memorized whatever the stuff and got through the midterm and the final and just still don't read. And I had complaints from people who had recording studios around the United States who said, what's with the Berklee singers, man? And they come in to do a session, they can't read. And I said, sorry about that. I taught them everything I tried to get that happen.
Wow.
So hard to do.
Oh, God, it just hurts my head.
They just don't want to. And I understand because I play drums by ear, and I know when you put a piece of music in front of me on drums, I don't want to look at it because I'm too busy feeling it. So I sort of get it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a balance, but I mean, still, you know how to read.
Yeah.
Um, by the way, David Joyce said they use in the school and LA College of Music, they use your exercises teaching jazz phrasing. Sorry, at Pasadena City College.
Oh, nice. Thank you. That's great.
Yeah. Um,
Really
yeah.
thanks.
I was going to tell you too. I was a friend of a pianist. I don't know if you ever met him, Carl Schroeder.
God, I know that name.
He lived in Boston for a long time, and he played for Sarah for like 9 years.
Sarah Vaughan?
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, I thought you might have known him in Boston, possibly. But anyway, he was teaching. He was head of the piano department at Musicians Institute, and we were friends or cohorts or whatever. So he said, "Hey, I want to try something out on you." He said, "I've been thinking. I've been wondering if I give you as a singer the same information that I give my pianists, would it improve your scatting?" So we made me an experiment, and tonal center is what he used. He used, this particular, like the threes and the sevens. He started off with Autumn Leaves, and then and used that as a basis for. It really helped me a lot. What it helped me with was, before I felt like I was spread out over the universe, and then this brought me in to this, the center of the music. Yeah. So that was a really interesting thing.
Did you play? He gave you a harmonic. There were harmonic approaches for pianists. Did you play the stuff or just kind of learn it theoretically?
No, it was hands-on, except,
Great.
and it was based first on the threes and sevens. So you would know you put threes and sevens within this Autumn Leaves, and then from those threes and sevens you would do a scale. And the songs, he had 5 songs. It was Autumn Leaves was usually the first one. Girl from Ipanema, No Easy Feet.
Yeah, right.
All the Things You Are, Joy Spring, and 500 Miles High.
Wow. Cool.
It's really very interesting. And I did teach it in a few workshops that I gave once I, had been doing it a while. And, but yeah, it was, I really enjoyed it a lot. It was good.
Good for you. That sounds excellent. I mean, it really opens up. Piano to me was, I think, the greatest thing that was ever invented.
Yeah.
And that was the last instrument that I have learned, and I don't play it other than like, basic, really, really basic stuff. But wow, now I'm hearing tensions that I used to teach and stuff, tension and moving tensions over a line, like I do in that book I wrote, Recipes, is taking a tension line and putting it together so it's almost all tensions going over Autumn Leaves.
Yeah.
Any of those songs, and it's like, wow, man, there's so much. So I love piano players, man. They've got it. Oh man, if there was a way of getting a transplant, from a piano player, at least getting a section of it in my brain, they are amazing what they know. So now I'm finally hearing from playing that instrument, which is why I think singers should, they gotta play stuff,
Yeah, I agree with you.
Hands on.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think it's easy to overlook what you can gain from it. I remember I decided to do a takedown from Jim Hall and Bill Evans.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I love it. And I'm right there with them listening. But when I did the takedown, that was a different experience. And I was thinking, well, I would never do that, as I was taking it down. And I didn't have that same thought when I was just listening.
Right.
So takedowns, I think, are really valuable too.
Totally. Like transcriptions and stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, totally. And I'll be the first to admit, I don't think anything comes out of my mouth that I can't trace to one of the many players I'd listened to. Like I'll scat a solo and I'll say, "Oh, you got that from Oscar Peterson," especially the fast stuff. Up there's a Dizzy Gillespie line. Oh man, I remember that from Maynard Ferguson, and it goes back 50 years. I'll listen to Maynard 64 or whatever, and I'll say, that's where I got that, So, I feel like I'm a composite thief where I've got, lines from but I don't mind because I'm a teacher. If I was professing to be an original improviser, no, I wouldn't even dare do that. I'm not. There's nothing original.
That reminds me of Suzanne Pitson. Do you know her?
I don't know.
She's a singer. She teaches at City College in New York. And she came here and did a workshop once in my workshop series. And she had, it was Charlie Parker lines. I think it was over 2/5s, but 2/5s. But so she had transcribed Charlie Parker lines over 2/5s, and she found songs where 2/5s were and would put them in. It was really good. But she's excuse me, she at City College, she's actually rewriting the curriculum to include stuff that they don't normally give singers, like your class on I forget what you called it, rhythm section rules.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she's now including that stuff in the curriculum. Sorry. Which is great,
Want to get some water?
Yeah, I have a chronic cough. I haven't coughed that much during this show, but yeah, it's been like 20 years that I've had this chronic cough.
Yeah. Allergies?
I wish I knew, because then I may not, I could treat it. But I've looked everywhere, Eastern, Western, everything.
Yeah.
And right now I'm doing a diet that I'm probably on my second month. It's called the Mucus diet. And
So
yeah,
no
and it's
dairy. Yeah.
right. It's basically fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
With little, a little bit of nuts and stuff. And it's not killer strict. You don't have to eat certain things at certain times, but I've removed all meats and fish and breads and dairy and sugar. And it seems to have taken down the amount of times that I cough.
Yeah.
Which is great. And mucusless diet, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good idea, except, you do miss certain things,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you too about, do you actually have situations where you sing songs? I mean, with words and,
I'm sorry, I'm laughing. I can't stand doing it. No, I don't. I avoid them like the plague.
Why did I know that? I don't know why.
I probably told everybody.
Do you do it at home?
No, never. I never sing lyrics. I hate lyrics. You know why? And I have a good reason for it. I guess good enough for me. People think I'm a singer, but I'm not. I am an instrument vocalist. I use my voice like an instrument. Everything, when I think, even if I have to sing lyrics, which I don't like, I think of them as sounds and articulations that I would practice assigning the same accents and weightiness. And of course, I'm using my mouth, and the jaw and all the correct technique for singing them, but it's purely clinical expression of syllables. Which, I mean, that's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It took me a while to get used to that. People would ask me to do stuff and I'd say, I just don't feel comfortable doing it. And it's because I am an instrumentalist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I use my voice, but please don't ask me to sing, Autumn Leaves, because the words don't mean anything to me.
That's so interesting.
It's
Yeah.
bizarre, isn't it?
It's not, there's not, I don't think there's very many people around who do that.
No, and that's kind of in a way became my niche. Was like, okay, I became the articulator, like the Terminator and the articulator. I'll show you how to articulate what you want to express. All right, so you don't know what to express. Here's the scales and the arpeggios and the scales and the threes and sevens and the tensions, and you got to put all that stuff in there. Let it float around a little bit, and then eventually it'll come out. Intuitively. If you just listen to a lot of stuff. But it's to me, it was all about articulating, and that's where I got totally into syllables and accents and stuff. It was just an extension of drumming and trumpet playing.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I could not pull off a song. I've got some recordings where I'm singing innocent child, a child is born.
Child is born, yeah.
And it's like I listen to it and I cringe until I get to the flugelhorn solo. And I said, wow, yeah, that's me, not singing big. And the only reason I did it is because I don't remember. I think there was a record company interested, but I never pulled it off. I don't really identify with that. So,
Yeah.
And I remember doing a concert once at remember the 1369 Club?
Yeah. Oh God, that was such a great club.
In Riles and stuff. I used to do that circuit.
Yeah.
And as a singer, I'll never forget the concert I did at 1369 as a vocalist. I had Brad Hatfield on piano, Saw Davis on congas. I had a great top shelf band. And I'm trying to sing and play flute. And I remember there was a couple sitting in the first row with their hands folded like this. And I remember they said, oh shit, these people are looking right through me. And they just, I would sing and they would just, and I'll never forget that because they knew I was full of shit. I was trying to do something. That was not me. That wasn't me. I should have told, if I could go back in time, I would have shaken their hands afterwards and said, you're absolutely right, man. I'm a scam. This is a scam, singing. But I mean, I could do other stuff, but oh my God, singing lyrics. Part of it is that I'm psychologically, how do I say, I'm pretty tightly wound psychologically in a lot of ways. And so for me, I'm very protective. There's nothing that feels better than a full drum set in front of me. When I got out to sing, I could not do it. I was totally naked and I hated it. But put me back behind the drums or in a trumpet section with a conductor and the whole orchestra, as long as there's some padding there, I don't want to be up front and I don't want to be exposed. I don't want people looking at me, folding, whatever. So very self-conscious, which makes performing a horrible thing if you're a singer, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And in fact, I've trained singers to get over that stage fright, which I've always had, by wearing a cap or wearing a fake beard, and to become a whole other different person. Because that's what I had to do to get on stage. I had to be the drummer or the trumpet player, the flautist, the bassist, not the singer, man. That was not me. Isn't that crazy? And yet, the irony is here I am, everybody knows, oh, Bob Stoloff, he's the guy who teaches singing. Well, sort of,
Yeah.
Instrumental approach to singing. Let's put it that way.
That's wild.
Not crazy?
Yeah, that really is interesting. By the way, the Hatfields, I had a band with Mike. And
Really?
yeah, so when I was in Berklee and, Mike and so Brad and, I basically grew up with them in college,
Boy, you were in really good company.
Yeah.
Those guys were the best.
Yeah, Mike, I mean, we had this band that was, in those days, the music had to cover a lot of different styles,
Oh,
and he always felt that Vibes was not the funky style, he couldn't get funky on it, but I thought he was great. He was just an amazing musician,
Yeah, they were, all of them. And Brad was, to me, like, he's playing piano on all my recordings.
Oh, yeah,
all my books.
Gorgeous player, yeah.
In fact, the book I have grew. What was it called? I don't remember. Blues Scatitudes.
Okay.
Um, what I did was I sent Brad chord changes on paper, and I said, do what you want to do with this, because he's such a genius. He came up with all of the grooves that are on Blues Scatitudes, and man, they are like totally amazing. Because I had, some swings, some were Cajun, some were 12/8 slow blues, some were, whatever it was, and he just orchestrated every one of those things. I cannot praise him enough for what he did on those recordings.
Ah,
Really amazing. And he sent back the tracks, and I put the vocals over it, and I said, holy mackerel, man, you're just slamming. But that's Brad.
yeah. How important do you think knowing blues is to singing jazz?
Harmonically, I think it's a real basic element. But in terms of singing over chord changes, it's too basic. I think it's a great way to introduce improvising, because it's fairly simple, until you get to the substitute chords and all that stuff. The basic 1-4-5 blues, I think, is a great way to get people going, because you can basically use that nice blues scale, and it's a great vehicle for getting people going. I don't think it's essential,
Yeah,
but I think it's a great tool to get people going on it.
yeah, yeah. What do you listen for when you're listening to music? Um, what what qualities in a person's playing stand out to you? I know that's kind of a very big, long question, but maybe just a few things.
Vocal or instrumental, or it doesn't matter?
I guess either way. Well, I mean, but I think I was thinking not of, I mean, in this part of the question, not of people singing lyrics. So, or, I mean, I guess you can hear people singing lyrics doing the same things that a good instrumentalist is doing too. So there's probably, crossover there.
Oh God, there's so much more dimension, as you know, for singing, because it's stage presence is like so essential. So
Yeah.
for singers, I what I'm listening for, if I do a comprehensive of whatever, like a jazz festival or whatever,
Yeah.
I'm listening, of course, to the basic breath management, tone quality, intonation. But then I'm going for expression, phrasing, style interpretation, diction, rhythm, all the things you would listen for a basic proficiency exam at any college.
Yeah.
Then I'm also seeing, are you connecting to the audience? What are you doing physically to connect with the audience? Because that's the whole idea of doing it. Now, it's funny, because when instrumentalists perform, there's a lot of them, they just get up. They don't give a shit about the audience. So it's like a whole different dimension.
Yeah.
But I tell them, I said, you really need to. I suggest that you if you connected more, you just open your eyes on occasion, or just you're shut down, man. You're just like, there's this whole wall going on. But I understand that wall, because I have it too, and nothing better than closing your eyes and playing saxophone or trumpet or something, or drums, and not worrying about the connection. Whereas singers got this whole other duty to the audience, to connect and make them feel lifted and feel good and feel great. As wow. So to me, it's two different camps
Yeah.
of what I'm looking for. And I used to love doing evaluations at Berklee, because I'd go in and I didn't know who was going to be there. There'd be singers, horn players, piano players, bass players. And having played a little bit of most of the instruments, I could delve into the technical part, but that always would add stage presence. Because I think that if you're going to get on stage in front of people, it's not fair to close your eyes and dig in,
Yeah.
unless you're playing for musicians, who
Yeah.
understand that and they want to hear your chord scales. But if you're a performer, which is why I don't perform. You have a duty. Although I'll tell you, if I do, I will have fun, and I will go out into the audience. I'll do all the McFerrin stuff, and sing to people and use their names and improvise, and I'll have fun. But man, it's scary for me to do that.
Yeah.
But once I'm in it, it's really, really cool. So I look for that connection thing. And you're talking about performing, right? Or
Yeah,
just-
I'm talking about, I mean, um, like, let me think. Well, one thing that I really like in a singer especially is to be so inside the music, what's going on with the musicians, that well, I have this way of talking about, like, if you're a singer, you have this first universe, which is your universe. You have to be responsible in that universe, have your voice together, know your songs, know how to sing, right? You have to know all that stuff. Then the second universe has that and the musicians. And that's the universe that I want to see. I want to see really strong, that universe that combines everybody. Then the third universe is that and includes the audience. And so I try and tell my students that, because a lot of times I see students forgetting, they don't focus on the first and second universe. And so why even bother doing it or watching it? I don't want to watch that. It's not fun. I want to see magic. I want to experience their magic, which they are supposed to be capable of doing.
So and so the challenge is getting them to bring out that magic, right?
Yeah, and I think it's very challenging
Oh my God, yeah.
to be in yourself and to be experiencing the best that you can experience within yourself, and then with the musicians. And then, as you say, sharing that too, So, I mean, that's one thing that stands out for me when I watch people. I want to see that magic. I want to see them being themselves up there, in the moment.
So yeah, and training for that. Wow. I think that's the hardest thing for me about,
Yeah.
and I have, geez, I honestly, I have to take a shot of scotch or something before going on stage to loosen up so that I can take those walls down and get into a fun, mood of humor, because humor is one of my default. And it's really weird because my parents imparted two things. One was anger and humor, well, and depression. Anger, human, and depression.
Oh my, how well I know that. Growing up in a Jewish household too.
Exactly. So you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And when you get on stage and you've got all of that inside you, my sister is paralyzed by it.
Yeah.
Where I have overcome it, I don't know how. I just had to, because I wanted to be king of the mountain, and I made sure that I was regarded as, oh, that's Bob Stoloff. He's whatever. He's really great at something, so you better respect him. And that's been part of my thing, but I don't want that anymore. So it's kind of weird. I don't want to. If I'm going to do something, I want to have fun. I want people to have fun, and I don't want to think about all that crap I grew up with.
Yeah.
But for a long time, that's what drove me. And even as a teacher, it was really hard to define, or really hard to isolate. How can I bring this out of somebody when I haven't brought it out myself?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have this terrible fear of getting on stage, and this anger and wanting to hit cymbals and break windows. What can I do? So it took me forever. Now I can do it, and I'm working with young kids, and with them, they're so open. They're so wonderful lotus flowers, man. They're just so beautiful. And I do have one 10-year-old who will get on, and he'll be in a horrible mood, and I'll say, "What happened?" He'll say, "I just smashed my TV," and I said, know that anger, and he and I really have a rapport because I know what he's going through. And it's great to now be able to remember what that was and to channel that, but I couldn't do it for the longest time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't have any older students now, so I'm working with kids. I think what it's doing, it's opening up something in me, which is just great. That's been kind of sleeping for a long time.
I
But
love that. That is so fantastic. I really
yeah,
can understand that. That's beautiful.
yeah.
Um, I I wanted to ask you something, and I don't. I if this is a little, if this is something you'd rather not talk about, just steer me away. But at the time when I did meet you in Boston, there was your wife was sick, and you were taking care of her quite a lot.
Mm.
That must have put you through a lot of growth and personal um, challenges. And is that something you would rather not speak of?
Oh no, I love speaking about it because
Okay.
we're not living together, but we are closer than ever before.
Oh, cool.
Partly because of that, and also some divine intervention.
Yeah.
And this has not happened in my life very often, but when we were in the midst of a battle, when we were in fierce battle, because depression is horrifying to deal with, and we were really in fisticuffs basically. I was driving home from New York. Anyway, I'd had this visitation from Mahatma Gandhi. Don't ask me why, I have no idea. And he said, this is not the way to go. And he opened my eyes. He said, you love this person. She's got this problem. You need to learn how to deal with it. If she's, if she's being reactive, whatever. So he explained it all in like this blast of thought. And it completely gave me a perspective. I could step outside myself and say, okay, my wife is being my wife at this point. Her behavior is coming from, her place of wherever she's coming from and all the trauma that she's had in her life. So that's not you, and you don't have to react to that. You can just take care of her, which is what you wanted to do when you met her. So that's what I do. I take care of her now, but she's done so much self-care and therapy, and she's now teaching. She couldn't work for the longest time. Now she's back teaching. She's come back, and we get together all the time, and it's just an amazing relationship because we know each other. Wow, we know each other so well. We know how we react to certain things, and it's really. I always tell her, I said, man, if this is love, this is what love is. It's not that romantic shit we were doing, like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It's really knowing a person, learning from them, and really developing a sense of, feeling what they're feeling and understanding what they're going through and not reacting, but just kind of understanding. So yeah, we're in a great place, and nobody can believe it. They say, why are you guys still together? I said, man, it's partly divine intervention and partly we wanted to do this. We have a daughter. We wanted to take care of her. We didn't want to split under bad conditions. So empathy is what I learned from my wife. And so I'm now an empathetic person, whereas before I was smashing windows.
Huh.
That was my default reaction was anger and but Mahatma Gandhi, why Mahatma? I don't know.
Were you studying him or nothing? It just, oh, wow, interesting.
No, but I swear to God, man, he was sitting in the passenger seat, coming back on route from New York, having seen my sister and raving about how I was going to kill my wife and all this horrible stuff. And he said, man, you gotta chill out, man. You gotta chill. And I swear I was like, whoa. I said, whoa. And it changed, it turned everything 180.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that something?
That's really something. Yeah.
It's really crazed, but
Yeah.
I swear to God, it happened.
Did you notice a huge shift in your music as well, or what you were doing in your career?
No, it was totally independent. It was
Huh.
pure psychological, physiological drama. And it was just great. I'm so glad that he kicked my ass. He really did. He said, man, what's wrong with you? What are you reacting for, man? That's her stuff. She's got stuff. Why don't you just love her, And I said, oh, okay. Sort of turn the other cheek and, but I didn't know anything about him really. I just always admired him from afar, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was this really cool guy, brought India to a whole
That's
different place.
beautiful. Yeah. It's kind of like, I kind of feel like our personalities are made up of these different spectrums.
Mhm.
And every now and then a spectrum will, like you and I might share this spectrum, and in the flows that life is, the spectrums may meet for a moment. And it sounds like that's what happened. Like he hooked up to your spectrum, man.
Totally. And here he is.
Oh, oh,
A man, it's not like him.
great,
So
man.
cool. He's just so cool. So yeah, it really was a great, I call it a divine intervention because man, I was on the whole opposite end.
Yeah.
So yeah, that chilled everything out, and we brought up our daughter. She's now liberated. She just moved out, and she's got her problems, but we loved her.
Yeah. That's great.
We needed to love each other to love her. I think it was really cool,
Yeah, that's just so huge.
but it had nothing to do with the music. It never had any. It was like two different things.
Yeah, yeah. Um, what are you doing these days? I mean, we spoke a little bit about it before we came on, but how has the pandemic affected you in your work?
Um, it's actually teaching online has been really cool because I would not want to be the 10 feet apart with the mask and the screens and all that stuff. I'm face to face like we are now, and I get to really see. So, and I've learned how to sync up timing and stuff. So I am teaching a lot at 23 private students
Uh-huh.
at this school, and it's working out really well. I am looking forward to going back in person, but I don't want that. I'm not looking forward to the social distancing,
Yeah.
but that's all I'm doing. I'm not writing books. I'm not writing autobiographies. I'm not, thinking of other ways of approach. I think I've run out of different approaches to everything, but I am learning how to teach young kids and how to connect with them. And it's really something. It's just very cool. I look forward to teach them there. They're just an amazing amalgam of emotions and situations and nationalities, ethnicities, and it's cool. So it's like a whole world I'm delving into. It's sort of like I'm waving goodbye to the world I've been living in, which is Bob Stoloff, the scat singer, the scat teacher, the drummer, the bass player, the trumpet player, the whatever. I was like, that was fun. I'm done now, man. I'm just, Papa Bob now. I'm Professor Bob, the daddy, and I got all these little children, which is very, very. I really love it.
I know Margie Farmer has kind of taken over some of the work to promote you, right?
Mhm.
And so does she book you jobs, like teaching jobs, or
Yeah.
what is she doing with you?
No, we parted friends, and
Oh, okay.
she still runs my website. She's wonderful. She's amazingly organized and great.
Great person. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she ran that whole Bob Stoloff School of Music, which was really great.
Ah,
And it just got to be traveling's just got to be hell. And of course, now with the pandemic, that would have ended. So she still runs my website. If things come in, she will send me, you do want to do such and such. But I told her, I said, no, I'm in a place where I want to be. Bob Stoloff's now evolved, into something else. So we're friends, and we do some business together, but no bookings anymore.
yeah. And also the thing about Russia, I can't remember if we talked while the show was running or before. I think we talked about it before, but can you talk a little bit about your relationship with Russia?
Yeah, they called me out of well, I say out of the blue, but they, I guess, found me somewhere on YouTube, whatever. It's an organization called La Note, Lanote,
Uh-huh.
and this fellow there, really nice man, started this cyber school, which I think is also in person as well in Moscow. And he called me and he said, "Would you like to do a bunch of workshops online? I'd like to record them and use them, And I said, yeah. And so we recorded a whole series of workshops, I think about 16 hours of recordings of teaching. And he had students online, and I'd work with them. And it would turn out to be a fantastic thing. It was just great. So, and he's expanding. He's, so I may be teaching for them online as an ongoing thing. I don't know. But when I got to do the jazz festival there and listen to those kids singing, oh my God, I could not believe. He said, would you like to adjudicate a jazz festival for singers? Sure, why not? And these kids, man, they were like slamming. I mean, like, oh my God, they're improvising like beautifully. So for me, it's a great connection for a lot of reasons. My father was from the Ukraine also. So I kind of feel this tug from Ukraine and Russia, and they have a very hardworking morale, which is just great. They're really a strong work ethic, which I really respect and I love. So I loved working with him. He was just great. The interpreter was fabulous. She's a voice teacher. It was a wonderful experience. And I think that if I do anything in the future, any teaching, it probably would be through them.
Yeah, yeah.
He's just a great guy. Philosophically, I like where he's at. He's a really cool guy. He's just really down to earth and really nice. So yeah, that was I'm glad that happened.
Yeah. And so are you teaching one-on-one privately online now?
Yes.
And if someone wanted to reach out to you, who would they be? An instrumentalist? Would they be a vocalist? What would
they could be either. And I also give voice lessons online. People just have to go to bobstoloffmusic.com, and that's where Margie comes in. She'll get an inquiry, and then she'll send it to me. Somebody wants to take voice lessons online, so I get some of those. But any instrument, and at least the ones that I play, anybody can contact me. But it's usually through the Real School of Music in Burlington. So I like to go around them since I work for them. So I tell people, go through the real school. But voice lessons, people from Europe, around the world, they go directly to me.
Okay. Well, Bob, thank you for speaking with me for 2 hours.
I can't believe 2 hours went by. Thank you so much, Cathy.
I know. Thank you too. I'm so pleased to get to know you better, and it's been really lovely to talk to you. And I wish you the very best. It's and obviously you're in a great moment in your life. Very obvious. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels pretty good.
Yeah.
I have to be honest, when the interview was coming up, I said, I don't want to talk about myself. I'm sick of myself. I want to hear Bob Stoloff. But no, I feel really great. That was really fun to play some stuff and talk about, because I really do embrace philosophy, and music philosophy. I could talk forever for you. So if you ever want to just like talk stuff, I love talking about approaches to teaching and stuff. So
cool. I love it too. So that's great. I thank you, and I will. I'll call you back.
Thanks, Cathy.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you so much. Thank you. And everybody, tomorrow I'm going to have Kristen Korb on, and she's a bassist and a singer, and really good. And Tom Breckline will be on Wednesday, a great drummer. And then I have archives from Thursday through Sunday. Dwight Tribble, great singer, very adventurous. And actually, speaking of Dave Joyce, Dave and his brother John on Friday, Brad Dutz, percussionist, on Saturday, and a blues singer, great blues singer named Teresa James on Sunday. So that's the rest of this week.
Wow. So you really like talking a lot, huh?
I do. Well, luckily, first I was doing it 6 days a week for like something like 9 months. Then I was like, okay, now I can go down to like 3 days a week and have some time. And then after a few months, I realized, I could actually post the archives. And so now people can go, if any day of the week, they can they can click in, and if they want to have the live experience, they come Monday through Wednesday. So
Excellent. Good for you. Well, thank you. Your show is great, and it's so nice to feature people. That most of the population doesn't know anything about us crazy musicians running around. And stuff.
I know. There's so many amazing musicians all over the planet with amazing minds and kind hearts, and
crazy stories.
That's what I want to hear more of, crazy stories from you.
God, I'll send you my autobiography. You want to get?
I can't wait, actually. I cannot wait to read your autobiography. I think it's going to be fascinating.
Well, having the same ethnic roots, I think you'll really appreciate it.
Oh, good. Okay.
Hi, Cathy.
Shalom.